we're really at a new economic geopolitical playing board. The game is risk, but the rules are transparent and you're either on the board or you're not. There's no way to hoax it. I think the revolutionary and evolutionary component to Bitcoin is its scarcity and its transparency. And I think that we're in the early epoch, we're in the nascent stages of a new attention pocket forming around value, and Bitcoin is the primary driver. It doesn't really require retail anymore. We're to the phase of the adoption curve where a sovereign wealth fund could take care of whatever retail might be able to muster in multiple years, is that they're just going to be some sort of Bitcoin bank, in which they're showing that now. So they're rolling out new financial products that collateralize Bitcoin for different tranches of economic activity. Money is like mass attention pockets that moves over epochs across time, and it changes. And then you start to think about, well, why does it change? I was like, well, it changes because what we pay attention to. Just the ability to spend an extra $1,000 can be life-changing.
Then, hi, Joseph. How are you doing? Everything fine on your end?
Yeah, everything's great, Robin. Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Before we get started with all the topics, maybe give the viewers and the listeners some background of who you are and especially why you're excited about Bitcoin.
Yeah, of course. I'm an author and studied English Lit and dramatic writing and philosophy at New York University. And I'm kind of a lifelong English major and got interested in Bitcoin in 2017, fired up a newsletter. Always been curious about what money is, and that kind of put me on this path. And last year I put out this book, Pay Attention to Bitcoin, and pretty proud of it. It's one of the better things I've ever written.
Interesting. Why did you actually, I think not a lot of people actually do pay attention to what money is. Like they usually only come across that question with Bitcoin, as I did myself. Was there something that kind of made you aware of this question, which seems easy, but for most, nobody ever asked them?
Yeah. The term pay attention, depending on, where you went to school and how you grew up, was something we were always told, or at least I was always told in school, pay attention. And that, what they were doing was asking us to focus, our imagination and our willpower, our observation at a particular subject or math problem or short story, what have you. And as I looked into the origin of money, that the idea of money as created by group attention focused sort of came into focus, into the aperture of what I saw value as. And then you start digging into it and you go back, way back in the day, it was seashells or it was, people would keep ledgers on big rocks, or they would use beads or, gold, dust, amounts of gold. And I started looking at all this and I was like, wow, that's fascinating. Money is fungible. It's not just a thing. It's not just the US dollar in 1971. And that's, we're on this fiat flight. But when you zoom out, you're like, oh, wow, money is mass attention pockets that moves over epochs across time, and it changes. And then you start to think about, well, why does it change? I was like, well, it changes because what we pay attention to. And then I really got into that and started to look at, where does our money come from? You watch that Richard Nixon speech in 1971 when he shuts the gold window because all these speculators, were asking, France and co., they were asking for their gold back. They were like, hey, we've been using this dollar as this international unit of account all over the world, but you're making more of them than the gold we gave you to support it. So we want that back. And so that was one of those turning points, in the evolution of money and attention, where people got wise and they're like, look, the ledger's not true, man. And so we had to flex political power. And that's why Nixon stopped allowing people to redeem gold for their dollars. And then ever since then, I guess what's that, 71? So that's 30. So with 50, 55 odd years, we've had sort of an illusory backing to what we call money, And what's amazing with Bitcoin is, it launched on the coattails of the financial crisis, which we all understand really well. Like 2008, the Lehman Brothers is crashing. Collateralized debt obligations and mortgage-backed securities are just these sort of propped up house of cards, and everything kind of fell. And then an anonymous creator introduced this new idea, which is we can pay attention to something else. And what's more is we can verify it. And so that's really, I think, the revolutionary and evolutionary component to Bitcoin is its scarcity and its transparency. And I think that we're in the early epoch, we're in the nascent stages of a new attention pocket forming around value. And Bitcoin is the primary driver.
What do you mean with attention pocket?
Well, there was an attention pocket around the Dutch guildar in the 1700s. And then there was an attention pocket around the British pound in the 1800s into the 1900s. And then there was an attention pocket around the US dollar. And I'm just proposing that a new attention pocket is forming around Bitcoin, and evidenced not only by the price run up and NGU tech, but corporate and nation state adoption. So we're really at a new economic geopolitical playing board. The game is risk, but the rules are transparent, and you're either on the board or you're not. There's no way to hoax it.
Love that. I also love the analogy with attention, because I think that a lot of it comes down to where you put your attention. I literally just talked about that with a friend of mine today, where it's so hard to be open-minded, because if you're open-minded and you pay attention to everything, you're not paying attention to anything. So you have to set your boundaries, and you have to very critical see where you pay attention. That's why I also asked the question of how did it come to your mind of paying attention to money? Which I think a lot of people just fly around and they never ask themselves a question with money. What is money? And maybe I should look into different money. Most people are just accepting in Europe, the euro; in America, the US dollar; in China, the yen, whatever the currency of that country is, they're just accepting the local standard, and they never ask the questions. I love the connection between Bitcoin and attention that you are drawing here.
Yeah, thank you. To expound and elaborate a little bit on, the origins of why I was interested in money, I was doing my master's work at the University of Southern California in about 2012. And I started looking at local currencies that operated in co-ops. So in Massachusetts, they had this thing called Berkshire bucks. And so they made this currency. It was redeemable at a bank. It's 1-for-1 with the dollar, but it had a geo fence around it. So it only worked at the local stores, the barber shop, the local grocery store, and the co-op. And what the organized expression of that was showing was, hey, we don't want value to be extracted from this community with credit card fees, processing fees, with all these sort of international and national financiers sort of meddling in the purse pockets of our local activities. And so I was interested in that straight away. I was like, oh, funny, people can just say this is a value unit and we all use it, right? So at the time, I got a bunch of businesses in Venice Beach to sign on to this idea that we would start a local currency called Leaves. And you could only use it in Venice Beach. You could use it, you could pop down to the grocery store and use it. You could use it at the local restaurants. And I had I don't know, after a month, maybe a dozen businesses and 300 or so people were yeah, sure, let's try it. So that didn't go anywhere. But what that showed me, it just it petered out. It requires, a tremendous amount of energy and, morphology to get that kind of change to occur. But what it showed me was, oh, wow, one can simply instantiate a unit and create an agreement around it and make it a currency. And what that did was, it protected the local economy. And then when I heard about Bitcoin, I was like, oh, that's cool. It's kind of like these local currencies, except for it's everywhere. And the geofence is the entire world, but it has the same principles of non-extractive tech. So when we use credit cards and we get into debt, or as a culture, we're allowing for a certain future extraction of our time energy. Whether or not we know it, we feel that. We didn't really have a good remedy for saving against that. The CPI, the consumer price, and inflation is like purportedly 3%. Maybe it's more like 8%. Like a basket of goods used to have a steak in it. Now it has like a shitty burger. And so like we can't save in dollars, which means we're being extracted from when we try to hold our power, our resource, right? And Bitcoin is the first thing that I saw that wasn't just a local solution to non-extractive financial technology, but it was a worldwide egalitarian one that was available 365, 7 days a week to everyone, whether or not they have a bank account, so long as they had a mobile phone and an internet connection. And I was just like, wow, this is amazing. Like I don't actually think we know what we're looking at. And it might take a whole generation before this can reach the level of maturity that I believe it's going toward.
Yeah, it takes some time. And I think your example is interesting, just trying a local currency. And you've probably encountered how hard it is for people to switch from something or like add something new. I think there are like, I'm very bullish on Bitcoin. Like I have a Bitcoin podcast doing it daily. I'm 100% on Bitcoin, transact mostly in Bitcoin. Like I earn most of my money comes direct in Bitcoin. I spend wherever I can. So I try to live as much as possible on Bitcoin, but still I don't think we'll have a Bitcoin standard anytime soon. I think this will take a very long time for the people to accept this as store of value, then slowly move on to having a media of exchange type of things. And like unit of account is like this will take a long time till the majority of the people on earth think about their financial energy in Satoshis. I think
Wow.
that takes a while.
Yeah. I don't think that it's even popular knowledge what a Satoshi is or how many of them are in a Bitcoin. There's a tremendous amount of unit bias. I remember back in the day, someone saying something like, well, I don't want to buy a $10,000 Bitcoin because I can't afford a full one. And I don't like the idea of not having one of something. And we can rationalize and be like, no, it's got all these small parts and you can get a little bit, but like the power of that is like, it's real. And now at 100 valuation, 100K plus, whatever, that's amplified, obviously, by 10x. And it's not going to go anywhere. So, my hope for more of the way to combat that would be some of these sort of Bitcoin proxy companies making their way into like the S&P 500, so that like a lot of investors and people that are already indexed to the S&P or the SPY get passive, effectively involuntary exposure to Bitcoin. So as this train runs away from us, they're in the caboose, whether or not they want to be, in terms of being like being able to partake in some of this upside. But I don't know. I mean, do you have any ideas for, how to get retail interested in buying 0.0000152 Satoshis every week? Because that's about what the average, person can cough up in a week. $100 here and there. Like, times are tight. I don't know. I mean, I think the educational side is helpful. I had people that read my book that said, fuck it, I'm in, So if you can get people to stack knowledge, maybe they'll know why they want to stack sats. Obviously, what you're doing is really helpful, but have you seen anything out there working to combat, kind of unit bias or the feeling that I'm too late? Because I think that's one of our biggest hurdles currently.
It is a huge hurdle. And if you think about what that means is people look at Bitcoin at the face value. So they don't look at market cap or what is the full potential of Bitcoin, or how small is Bitcoin compared to gold, how small is Bitcoin compared to real estate markets. They don't do that. They just look at the ticker symbol, which is on CNBC, on all the mainstream media, and it's like, oh, one Bitcoin is 100,000, 15, whatever, like whatever the current price is. And they're like, oh, that's expensive. Because most people don't have $100,000. Most, like the average wealth is, I don't know, like something around, like it depends on where you live and all of that. But I would guess in America, it's somewhere around 100 to 200,000 US dollar. But there is everything in there, like their home and everything. So most people don't have a spare $10,000. And they definitely don't have a spare $100,000. So they don't think like, oh, let's buy that one Bitcoin. And it's interesting because there's this thing with market cap and Bitcoin. So it's like, would it be better if we have one Bitcoin not at 100,000, but maybe at now just 1,000? But then in the beginning, it would have been so cheap. Like one Bitcoin would have cost like 0.0000. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I do think also, as you said, retail is not as interested currently at Bitcoin as I thought it would be. 1,000 before we reached 100,000, my thesis was retail will get fear of missing out and saying like, oh, now we have to get in. Like it will get like, oh shit, like now Bitcoin is ripping. We have to get in. But kind of the opposite happened. Like people were like, oh yeah, Bitcoin went up, but I don't like it. And it's now so expensive. So I don't like it and it's expensive. So why should I buy it? That's kind of the reaction I got a lot from people that don't have Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's like it's a little bit like sour grapes, like, I don't want these anymore, or they weren't going to be good anyway. And so we'll see. What's comforting from, the Bitcoin, pro Bitcoin perspective is it doesn't really require retail anymore. Like we're to the phase of the adoption curve where, a sovereign wealth fund could take care of whatever retail might be able to muster in multiple years. Endowments, and Harvard just dropped a big ticket into Bitcoin. It's like 100 mil or something. The Harvard endowment, they're one of the oldest ones in the United States and a benchmark standard for investing principles. Like, and that's just like the first couple of dominoes. And obviously purportedly the States has a Bitcoin strategic reserve. We'll see how that shakes out. But all of those things are just directionally pointing to a market that's just so much bigger than a retail market that it's almost moot at this point.
It's interesting because I ask a lot the question of like how Bitcoin will be adopted. And I think more and more that Bitcoin might just be indirectly adopted for most people. And most people don't even realize that they have Bitcoin at some point. They're like, oh, I use that app and they have that Satoshi thing. It's like, and I can pay with it. Or, oh, now they maybe just use Bitcoin in the background. Or a lot of people are invested in Bitcoin because Tesla holds it and Tesla's in the S&P 500. That's not directly, but like that's an indirect exposure somehow. What if MicroStrategy now gets added and there's like all of a sudden not one or two companies in the S&P 500? What if there is 200 or 100 companies in the S&P 500 that actually hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet? That's an indirect exposure that most people have because a lot of people have indirect have direct exposure to the S&P 500. So there's a lot of the question that I have, like how much does retail even matter for overall Bitcoin adoption?
I don't think it does anymore. And just to build on that, not that I wouldn't encourage colleagues, friends, family members to go out and buy some real Bitcoin and move it on over to a cold storage wallet. I think the era of the cold storage wallet was, the last 2 cycles. And I just don't think I think it's moving towards indirect institutional exposure. And that's just part of the growth cycle. In terms of like not knowing that you have sats, like a little anecdote, my nephew is like playing some video game on his phone and he was like winning sats. It's like legitimately like sats. And he just thought they were like game tokens. And I was like, I like checked it out. I was like, so those are sats, like Satoshis? He's like, yeah, what are they? I was like, they're, they're little tiny pennies of Bitcoin, bro. Like that's real money. You know what I mean? And that didn't even click. And I think that's a good, he's a young buck now, like high school kid. So like, that's an example how in the mass consciousness, all him and his homies were all playing this game and they just didn't even know they were working with Bitcoin. And I think we'll see that type of seamless integration, a UX on the front end that feels like a particular game or app or mobile service that seems to be flawlessly interfacing with your credit card or your checking account, but which on the back end is running through, in and out of Satoshis according to the user's preferences, with an option to obviously like not go from sats back to fiat, but which default through from like, fiat into sats as just a function of the under the hood behavior for a particular game or service or SaaS that the developers know they're trying to store and hold their value in an economy that's running away in fiat. And so they kind of generate this black box solution that protects their balance sheet while giving like full like optionality to the front end user to like keep redeeming and pulling their fiat out at will. But which, as mentioned, which has like a bottom line based in Satoshis. And I think that's coming. It's just dev takes a while. The tech has to emerge. So we'll see.
And the network effects take a long while. If you think about how hard it is for any new platform to arise, how hard it was even for Instagram to get ahead of Facebook, for new social media platforms to get ahead. And Facebook, even though it's still used a lot, they are still having a major part of the social media market, even though it seems like nobody uses Facebook anymore. But there's a lot of daily and monthly active users there that it's just like very sticky. And with an app, it's so hard. Like getting people to get a new messenger app, getting people to new money where you have opportunity cost is, I think, even harder. If I want you to download a new messenger app and have new communication platform with me, that's just like it costs me one click of a button and download the messaging app. Like it costs me a little bit of time. If I want you to switch from fiat to Bitcoin, you have the opportunity cost of potentially losing everything if you are in fiat safer than in Bitcoin. So I don't know what you think about the network effects, but I think this will take a while. It will take a while till people really get Bitcoin and the network effects. And once it's built up, then it's like running for like hundreds of years because it's really hard to get off it.
Yeah. We'll see. I'm fine with the narrative of Bitcoin's digital gold. You hold it in your portfolio like you do, and it becomes part of like what used to be like a 60-40 portfolio, but now it's like whatever, 60-20-20, and it's gold and Bitcoin, and then like tech stocks and index funds. Like that reality is fine with me. I know a lot of Bitcoiners want hyper Bitcoinization and like adoption to be, everyone's buying and transacting in sats. And I do think, to harken back to the attention pocket, that we're going that way. But like, if you look at like, the guildar and the pound and the dollar, we're talking 100 to 150 year pockets, and Bitcoin's 16, so that's going to take a long time to mature, probably past our, level of influence, 30, 40 years maybe. And in the meantime, it'll probably just be more and more seen, as a risk-off asset that people want to hold a little bit of, and financial advisors are going to start encouraging clients to keep some of that. And then, on our end, it's like, what do we want to do with the appreciation of value? And this is where I've been more interested lately, which is like, so what? You have more resources or financial time saving power. What is that? How does that translate into what, someone's raison d'etre, like their purpose, their passion, like what they're trying to go for in life? And like, I'd like to see, and I'm working on doing it myself, like rolling increased financial power into active daily options, decisions, life events. I think there's a stigma about spending Bitcoin, because if NGU goes up forever, why wouldn't I just keep it? And I think that's true to a degree, but if you've reached a certain level of, look at it like a traditional stock position. Like if you bought Amazon at whatever, $50 and now it's 300, maybe actualizing some of that financial purchasing power that you've accrued through prudent investing can translate into an impact in your current daily life now. Like, what do you want now? Because life isn't only lived for tomorrow. And I think that Bitcoiners have stigmatized selling. Obviously, selling happens. James Check talks about this a lot. People are like, oh, they don't think people sell it. Like, no, they sell. Like, there's a ton of sell pressure at 105, ton of sell pressure at 110. I think we hit like 114 today. I glanced at it earlier. Well, there's going to be a ton of sell pressure there. Eventually, the whales will thin out, or they'll realize that, everyone's cashed up enough, and they're going to say, okay, let's wait for the next up level in the price function. I just think that it's prudent to socialize the idea of like, if you only have built wealth on a digital ledger that's stored in a hard drive somewhere, in a safe behind guns and bullets or whatever, that's not actually impacting your life at all in any way. It's just a digital idea that's abstracted on the cloud. Maybe you are interested in pursuing, I don't know, maybe you want to get a falconing license or learn how to go hang gliding, or maybe you're really interested in origami, or you want to build a wood workshop, or fuck it, you want a hot tub. Who cares? Like, whatever it is this idea of like, make life cool now, within reason, and don't just like stack for your grandson, which is also cool to do. But I would just love to see more Bitcoiners move that financial energy into, it's the ethos of no chairs, like no chairs, to me is a misguided notion of how to accrue and work with wealth. Now, it was very helpful early on when it was like, 5,000, 10,000, 3,000, 16,000, 2,000, like you had to stomach a certain amount of volatility, and that sort of no chairs mindset is what made, these common memes like diamond hands, it's what made them work. But that ship has sailed. Like, that day is past. We're in an evolved financial market with like a worldwide instrument that's a tenth of the market value of gold, and that window is going to continue to close. So for Bitcoiners that have been around for a cycle or two, as opposed to just being like, all right, I'm going to eat ramen noodles, buy as much Bitcoin as I can, and hit the gym, start thinking about the context of like, what can I put money into today, if at all, that delivers value to my friends, to my family, to my community in a real way, something you can take a bite out of or touch, as opposed to just like, I've got all this like cyber money and I'm eating ramen tonight. Like, I think that's like a little misguided. So I just want to like push a little air into that, because of Bitcoiners can be pretty diehard. I do see this trend like decelerating, but I think it's worth calling out.
I think it's also important, as you said, like your health, your time, your family is more important than your Bitcoin. And Bitcoin at the end of the day is money. And of course it reflects your time, and everything comes back to time, but having more time with your family, having better health. And I do like ramen. I actually do like it, but not the instant ones. Like, it's a nice dish sometimes. But it is like, enjoy life, do something that you like. And I always get the comment, oh, like this comes from someone that has enough Bitcoin. Yeah, no, like you can always say I don't have enough Bitcoin, and you can always say I have enough Bitcoin. Like both things can always be true. You can always have more. Like the guy with 0.05 Bitcoin says, oh, I don't have enough Bitcoin. I really want to have 0.1 Bitcoin. The guy with 0.1 Bitcoin says, oh, I don't have enough Bitcoin. I want 1 Bitcoin. The guy with 1 Bitcoin says, oh, I don't have enough Bitcoin. I want to have 10 Bitcoin and up to 100,000 Bitcoin. I mean, Michael Saylor, I think he is not he doesn't think he has enough Bitcoin. He keeps buying, strategy. So it's like there can always be a new level, and you can always be, having 1 million Satoshis, or having a full Bitcoin, being a Satoshi billionaire. So I don't know. I support the idea of spending Bitcoin, especially if it's net positive to your life. So maybe not spend it on, and it's also complicated because maybe you want to spend it on something that doesn't make sense. Maybe you want to buy your dream car and it's fine. I'm more against that, but it's your money and you should do it if you really enjoy it and if it brings something good to your life. But most importantly, like, buy yourself some time with your family. Like, buy yourself some better health, good food, workout, like all those things. I think is fundamental. I mean, this is you shouldn't suffer because of Bitcoin. You should get more. You should get Bitcoin to get more life, and not more life into Bitcoin, something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to be putting a sauna in my backyard, and it's like expensive, and I'm most likely going to sell some Bitcoin to pay for it. And I just think like that's a concrete example of something that like I can take that sauna a couple times a week. It's better for my health. Like, I'm a Norwegian guy, and like, we're up north in the cold, and like it's part of my culture and part of our vibe to like be in a wet rock sauna and like throw steam on that, like breathe in there. Like I live off that shit, and I've never had an opportunity until now to be like, you know what? I am going to pull the trigger on this. I'm going to create a reality where I have that in my backyard. And it's worth so much more than Bitcoin for me, because it's the shit. Who doesn't like a sauna? You know what I mean? But it's like a great real world example of like, this is worth more than that digital ledger. And that's what our money is for. And to your car point, like I always say, like, oh, land, not Lambo. But like, maybe it's not a Lambo, but if you have a dream car or some classic thing that you want to ride around in a convertible and that makes you happy, I mean, go for it. And, people always talk about cars and these huge big ticket items, but just the ability to spend an extra $1,000 can be life changing. Maybe just getting that new MacBook that helps you work on your music, or that one, cool, I just bought, like, I got a 4-track cassette recorder off eBay the other day. It was like $180. And that's dope to me because that's like a vintage recording equipment. But like, that's worth, you know, selling Bitcoin for, because it's a real object that brings like cool shit into my life, like the ability to record on a tape, work on some music. So just thinking like that, thinking like what inspires you? Like people throw out cars and houses, I think, a lot, but it doesn't have to be that. It can be a $350 item, you know, that just changes the way you interact with your daily matrix. Maybe it's just a slightly more evolved piece of tech, or a certain vintage something that you like, or an armoire, or a bookcase, or a record player, or a digital like these new MPC players that people are interested in, or like, I don't know. The idea is like, you can think more creative. You don't have to save up till you spend a bunch of money. You can just make little tiny choices in life that improve. Like I got this set of glasses the other day. They're like dope. I got them at this vintage shop. They like hold really well in the hand. They're like old school glasses. They're like not too big, not too small. They were $5 a pop. But like, that's probably the best $20 I spent last month. You know what I mean? Because like I drink out of these glasses every day. And so just, I guess how I would correlate all of this back to Bitcoin is like thinking about your daily matrix and your daily reality and like your tangible world as like a manifestation and an exteriorization of your internal wealth. So you want to be holding nice things, feeling nice things. Nice doesn't mean it's too expensive or overpriced. It just means it's something that you like. And, you know, trying to build that world for yourself and for your family. And Bitcoin can help. And the point of that is that all of those things that I just mentioned can be bought with less than 0.1 Bitcoin. Like, it's not like I have to get this, you know, $400,000 Lambo. There are very small items, you know, that can help with health and wellness, you know, whether it's whatever. There's all these great ways to expand. So that's just like a perspective on money and like how money's really meant to be turned into things and not just stay as money.
I do love the watches from Coin Vigilante, but today I have a very special message, not from me, but from the CEO himself, Carlos from Coin Vigilante. Let's hear him.
To all the Robin Seyr podcast community, I'm Carlos Estrada from Coin Vigilante, and we're sponsors of the show, and we're going to give you a very special discount exclusive to you, 10% off your order at coinvigilante.com when you use Robin at checkout. We have really nice watches that you guys can buy right now for 10%. This is a transparency edition, beautiful watch. These watches are worn in over 55 countries and counting. This discount is just for you, exclusive to the Robin Seyr podcast. We have limited editions. We have limited productions. These watches come in very nice packaging, boxing material, and they are collector's item for Bitcoiners only. Enjoy the discount. Thanks for supporting the show and Coin Vigilante.
I finally and officially mine Bitcoin. This is not just something to stack more Satoshis, but it's most importantly also to support the network. Individual miners are the ones that keep the Bitcoin network decentralized. And by the way, you get KYC free Bitcoin. That's why I use Simple Mining. I get an actual proper Bitcoin miner. They set it up for me. They repair it if it breaks down. And most importantly, they let me choose the pool and even connect my own full node. I'm completely sovereign and I'm completely in control, and I can sign up with Ocean, no account needed. I just give them a Bitcoin address and then there's mining going on. No KYC, nothing. So if you're ready to mine Bitcoin, go to simplemining.io, tell them you come from Robin, and let's mine Bitcoin together. I want to tell you about something very special to me. It's called Microseed. If you hold your Bitcoin in self-custody, and you should, you know how critical it is to secure your seed phrase. You should not have them on paper. You should not have them on anything else than titanium. With Microseed, you can engrave your 12 or 24 word seed phrase, the entire seed phrase, onto a 1-inch small washer. Yes, just one washer. All 24 words on that one washer. You can hide that thing everywhere. And even better, you don't need to buy a new kit every time you have to get get a new wallet. You can make unlimited backups because Microseed is not selling the washer. Microseed is selling the device that stamps the washer. So you get the full kit with the device, with the washers, with the hammer, with everything you need to get started today. And you can make with that unlimited amount of backups. Go now to microseed.io. Again, that's microseed.io to get your last backup tool you ever need. The most important thing for your Bitcoin journey is not buying Bitcoin, but it's how to keep them. And yes, you have maybe the right tools, but how do you actually go ahead and stick it all together so it's the most secure for you personally? Self-custody is a deeply personalized journey, and the Bitcoin way is helping you exactly finding that correct setup for you personally. They are also helping you with securing your own cybersecurity. And if you want to go one step above all that, you can even get a consultation for a Plan B residency. Go to thebitcoinway.com/Robin and you will get a 30-minute free consultation. Have you seen yesterday the Apple event was, and have you seen the orange new iPhone? People are saying people, no, it's the whole, it's the same iPhone as last year's. It has no improvements in my opinion. But they only have 3 colors, and it's fascinating how many people are now speculating that Apple does anything with Bitcoin. I just thought about that because it was a debate on Twitter where like, oh, just because they're doing an orange iPhone, that doesn't mean you have to buy it. It's like,
yeah, right.
Don't spend your Bitcoin on it.
I think I would like auto buy anything that's orange. I'm like, ooh, it's orange, especially like that rusty orange, not like bright orange, but that like old, like vintage, rusty, like 70s couch type orange. I'm like, ooh, that's so like vintage Bitcoin. I gotta have it. It's funny. A lot of people changed their branding too. Did you see Gemini like rolled out like a more orange interface? The Winklevi twins, their UX on their app now is way Bitcoin forward. And they've been like shilling shitcoins for 7 years. You know what I mean? Like buy this, buy that, like any way to make attention, and all of a sudden they're just like on the Bitcoin bandwagon, like redesign like the way the app looks on the phone. It has like an orange hue, like when you open it up, it's like discussing Bitcoin first. And I'm just like, dude, everyone's going to get the message sooner or later. Like you can shill around and like sell these like vapid, inane, centralized versions of like Bitcoin all you want, but like eventually if you don't like get on the train and like market your company towards Bitcoin. And you saw the same thing with what's his face? Armstrong, Brian Armstrong at Coinbase. Like in the alt season, they're all about alt, you know, this and that. And then all of a sudden now he's like out there doing press releases and PR, like Bitcoin forward. They put out like a massive Bitcoin ad. I don't know if you saw it recently. It was actually pretty beautiful. It's one of those like thoughts of life, a story in the day of kind of what is money. And they have a great marketing team. But anyway, point is now they're like double down Bitcoin. This is a company that could have bought Bitcoin back in 2010, maybe like a year. Like Armstrong like thought of Coinbase, the original instance of the idea was he was just like letting people send Bitcoin back and forth to each other. And then he actually got to a point where he asked some of these users and he was like, well, what do you guys want? They're like, well, we want to be able to buy it. Where do we get this shit? So that was actually how he pivoted, which is a great way to pivot any company, by the way, is always just ask your users what they want. Jack Mallers talks about this with Strike a lot. Like he used to think that he needed to envision what should happen for a company and then go out, on a quest and find that and bring it back. It's really much easier than that. It's just a survey with like an Amazon gift card, which is like, will you please just tell me what you want? So anyway, so Brian did that for Coinbase, flipped to buying Bitcoin. He didn't buy any Bitcoin. I mean, for 10 years, they never put Bitcoin on their balance sheet. That's got to be the biggest financial oversight in like the history of cryptocurrency. And I'm not sure, did you see something came out? I feel like they might have actually just recently bought some, like in 2025. Did you see anything about that, Robin?
No, but I'm pretty sure they have. Like,
yeah.
I couldn't say it. Like I can look it up, but I think
yeah. No
I'm pretty sure they have bought Bitcoin this year.
This year, or possibly late last year, but whichever the case is, they've gone marketing forward Bitcoin, and same with Gemini. And like, I don't know what Kraken and Binance are doing, but I imagine they'll get on book as well. And then these companies like River and Strike, I think, are just so. I'd be curious, in your jurisdiction, what Bitcoin only companies you support or look towards. But I've been really pleased with the UX on both of those companies, and I really enjoy both of the CEOs. Jack Mallers and Alex Leishman. These guys are legends, and they're building really great tech. Strike loans are coming out. That's going to financialize the world. The ability to get like a $500,000 loan against your Bitcoin in a country where, the currency is heavily debased is a total game changer. People think of, Strike is international and they're always expanding. So I just feel like, some of that access to capital is really crucial. And I like seeing Bitcoin only companies. I do think this paper treasury stuff is going to kind of go poof, maybe with the exception of, for sure with the exception of MicroStrategy, and that's just what I'm calling them. I'm not going with the rebrand. Is that they're just going to be some sort of Bitcoin bank, in which they're showing that now. So they're rolling out new financial products that collateralize Bitcoin for different tranches of economic activity, junk bonds, low, high yield, low risk, and then up the curve there, like higher risk, with a little bit of equity, like STRK. So like, I think wherever he's taking that plane, that's going to work, because number go up and the guy owns, I don't know, what is it, 630,000 Bitcoin. Metaplanet seems to be doing pretty well with the Japan jurisdiction. I don't know how Adam Back's company is going to go, or how Jack Mahler's 21 Vibes is going to go. That seems to be just kind of, they both seem to be sitting there. But yeah, maybe 4 or 5 companies make it out, and then a lot of the copycats can't. But I'm more interested in companies that have cash flow and that are cash flow positive, just starting to use that to buy Bitcoin, as opposed to just be like, like, what did the Bitcoin magazine David Bailey guy do? Just like, he just hopped into a shell company and then was like, okay, now this is the Bitcoin company and it's Nakamoto. And anyway, I'm not going to like disparage any guy who's trying to innovate in Bitcoin, but the whole move just felt like uncouth to me. I was just like, ugh, is there no like value there? And he already has a company that's like cash flow positive. Like, why don't you just make Bitcoin magazine and like start taking your excess revenue and like buy Bitcoin? Because everyone's trying to take this like levered debt play and like get all this like market, interest. But I think a lot of that's going to contract against them over time. And like you were talking about, like, well, I would like to see like real companies like Tesla. They make money, they make cars, they're good, they're cash flow positive, and sweep some of that into Bitcoin, as opposed to like using Bitcoin as this like speculative like alt paper Bitcoin play. So we'll see where it goes. Do you have any read on what you think is going to happen with MSTR and the whole Sailor Titanic ship? Where are we going with that?
There is, for me, 3 types of treasury companies. The first type of treasury company are cash flow positive, great companies that have some sort of product or service that they provide that are unrelated to Bitcoin, or maybe even related to Bitcoin, like selling like hardware wallets or something like that. And they have that positive cash flow. And with that positive cash flow, some of that goes into Bitcoin, and they just accumulate Bitcoin on the treasury. They don't have any debt, or they don't play any bonds or fiat games on top of that. That's the first kind of a company. Maybe they have a little bit of debt, but like not a lot, like under reason. Then there's the second type of treasury companies that are the strategies, the meta planets, that they service, their product or service is basically getting capital that is locked into place and cannot move directly to Bitcoin, move indirectly to Bitcoin with their products and services. They are acting as financial pipes, basically, in my view. And they are buying Bitcoin, leverage, and they're building out new products for that. That, I think, has a space, medium term, maybe even like long term, as the Bitcoin, like we're now at what adoption percentage, maybe 1%, maybe 2%, maybe under percent, depending on what metrics you're looking at, maybe 5% if you're looking at other metrics. And from that low metric towards 100% Bitcoin adoption or 80, 70% Bitcoin adoption, they can capture a lot of upside there. But there won't be a lot of players doing that. As you said, there might be 4 or 5 players that capture different kind of segments of the market, like Japan with MetaPlanet, strategy with the Western world. And then there's a third type of treasury companies that try to copy what strategy and all the other ones are doing. They will just go bust. I don't think there's any, they might compete with them because they are better in whatever they are doing, but then they have to outcompete the current companies like strategy, and this will be super, super hard. So just copying that strategy, I personally don't think this will work. There might be 5, 6, maybe 10 companies at best that can do that, but not hundreds, definitely not thousands. So I think a lot of those treasury companies will go bust. But I hope that the first type of treasury companies, those just have a great business, product, service, and they have cash flow. They just invest in Bitcoin. I think that's the best play you can do. And if you want to put a little bit leverage on that, go ahead and do it, like within reasons. Individuals also do it. There's no wrongdoing in that. I'm personally not a fan of leverage at all. But if you want to do it, go ahead and gamble.
Right. A little calculated risk, sometimes is prudent it's if you have the risk appetite for it. And I don't want to dunk on all these paper Bitcoin companies fully, like Scottie Pippen style, because they're all like buying Bitcoin, which is just dope. So like, I don't care what company you are. You want to raise a bunch of money. Maybe you'll lose it. Maybe you'll fail. Maybe you'll have to sell the Bitcoin later. I don't care. If you're out there buying Bitcoin and that's like your MO, in whatever way you have to scrape, claw, cajole, and cry your way into getting that capital to buy Bitcoin, more power to you. Keep doing it, because that's way cooler than stocking T-bills, whichever was running away from the bond market now. So yeah, not to just like fully dunk. I think it's an interesting evolution. Like you said, maybe 10 companies bear out, maybe more, maybe less, but either way, it's interesting and it's fun to see the evolution in the Bitcoin, arena. It's fun to see new shit happen. So I'm for all that.
You also wrote about that attention. We talked about that before. It's really interesting. When we even look, the attention within Bitcoin is kind of shifting. We had the retail attention, then we had the attention on the institutional side. There are always side tensions. Now it seems like we are focusing on the node issue. I don't know if you paid attention at all to the nodes versus core aspect, and which Bitcoin node you should run, which I personally like because people are talking about running a node. I think that's a very positive thing for Bitcoin. We need more nodes. And then it's just interesting to view like how the narrative and the tension within Bitcoin is actually shifting. Because in the beginning, Bitcoin was a lot about peer-to-peer cash. And now it's more about the digital gold aspect. Mm-hmm. Maybe in 20 years, 30 years time, it's again to cash because people are more excited to spend it again. I don't know. But how do you look at attention and at the attention economy, but within Bitcoin?
Yeah, well, a few different ways. First of all, running nodes and talking about nodes is excellent. So like the core versus knots, I just think that the fact that people are even learning like, oh, there's like more than one instance that I can even run. Like there's like, you don't have to just run Bitcoin Core, or furthermore, you don't have to update an older version of Bitcoin Core if you don't like a new feature that's rolled out later. That's all positive. I think that's a fairly big nothing burger. I don't think we're going to change it at the protocol level to make blocks smaller. I don't think we can change what people want to put in the blocks. It's cool that people are talking about running nodes. I mean, if anything, the coolest thing that came out of running nodes are all those little axe masters or whatever they're called, the real small ones that people run. They're kind of like, they look like little Raspberry Pis or whatever, but I ran one for a while and it was just fun to just be like, oh yeah, cool. Like that's a node. And those are kind of got popular. And I think that that's just like within the attention of Bitcoin is kind of fun. A couple of them actually hit, like 2 or 3 of them hit. Do you know what I'm talking about? I can look it up. It's like,
the BitAxe, I think.
BitAxe. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Sometimes words for me kind of juggle in my mind sometimes because I've too many of them in there. But yeah, that BitAxe kind of phenomenon where people are running, their own little node and that the fact that some of those hit a block and like got a purse is insane. Like the mathematical probability of that is low, to put it simply. And then kind of where else was your question going there? Just like talked about nodes. Oh, just the attention of Bitcoin. Yeah. Okay. So it goes from retail to institutional, nation state, sovereign wealth funds, pensions. Oh yeah, that's the point I wanted to hit on. So Satoshi wrote in the white paper, peer-to-peer digital cash. But I think that people, when they say, oh, Bitcoin is digital gold, it's not cash. Well, people save cash too. Whatever happened to the good old fashioned trope, cash under the mattress? So like, I don't think thinking of Bitcoin as gold makes it less of a payment system. It's just like a big form of payment. Like instead of $10, I could give you 1,000. So to me, that's also a nothing burger. Like, oh, it's supposed to be used for coffee. It's like, well, who cares? A bar of gold is still, well, maybe you would call it capital and not cash, right? Because it's not paper. But like, it's digital payment. So the whole like, is it this or should it be that? Like, as long as it's seen, as long as the attention lands on it and says this has value, that's cash, that's capital, that's gold, that's money, that's financial time technology, that's time savings technology, that's sovereignty. From the origin of sovereign, that's like the right. It's holding, it's holding value. As evidenced by the Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin fork, when the whole thing went down with that, well, attention split, right? So a blockchain has a fork and 2 instances appear, and one of them is the parent chain and one of them is the fork. In this case, the fork was Bitcoin Cash. But where did the attention accrue and aggregate? Well, there was a little bit of a battle for that attention field, but it accrued on the parent chain. Okay, so that's where all the value went. It stayed on the parent chain. And if you'll permit an altcoin metaphor, when Ethereum had the DAO hack back in like 2013, they also, they had ETH, and then they forked and created the new Ethereum and labeled the parent chain ETH Classic. So again, a blockchain hits a fork, opens up 2 roads. The parent chain was ETH Classic. The new chain was ETH, and they did that so some hacker didn't make off with all the bounty that they stole from the DAO. But the point there is that all the attention accrued on the new ETH. And so that's where the value went. So in each instance, the blockchain forked. In one instance, the parent chain accrued the value. In the other instance, the forked chain accrued the value. And it just proves that attention is that arbiter of value. where we focus is where the money goes. And so Bitcoin is money, Bitcoin is cash, Bitcoin is gold, Bitcoin is capital, Bitcoin is time value saved. It's a nothing burger whether or not you can buy coffee with it. And, as long as you can use credit cards and pay them off, this is kind of a controversial Bitcoin stance, but I'm all for it. Fuck them. You know what I mean? You want to give me a $5,000 credit card with 0% down for 18 months, which I can systematically pay off month by month up until the time when you would charge me interest. You just gave me 18 months of where I don't have to sell Bitcoin and I can earn fiat and mine fiat in my regular life and pay off this credit card and buy more Bitcoin. Well, that's a much better deal than having to sell Bitcoin today. So I'm juxtaposing that against the original idea I put out, which is like, it's also okay to sell. I'm very much for that. But I don't think there's anything wrong if you can manage debt. Not everyone can, but if you can understand debt and interest rates and how credit card companies operate, you can use their time against them, not sell Bitcoin until you really need something, and just pay off all your debt. As long as you're not paying interest on a card, you're winning. I wouldn't advise that for everyone, but that's just another way to spend money. So just back to that attention thing. It's like, at the end of the day, ETH Classic became a nothing burger, and now Ethereum's like $5,000. At the end of the day, Bitcoin Cash became a nothing burger, and now Bitcoin's like $115,000. So each of those things, each of those instances of a forked blockchain proves that attention is the ultimate driver of value.
Where actually did you get the attention economy idea or the attention idea in general from? I know it from social media. Like in the content creator space, we talk a lot about the attention economy. Is that like, or where did this idea come from?
Great question, Robin. In just the popular zeitgeist, social media. Like the more followers that you have, the more money you can make, because whatever, ads add up on YouTube if you have more eyeballs. So eyeballs connote clicks and vision and attention, and equals cents and dollars and money. But the philosophical idea actually came from a book called Propaganda by Edward Bernays. And I cited and talk about it in the book. And basically Edward Bernays was this, he was the father of public relations and PR, which was originally called propaganda, and the purpose of which was to shape and mold the collective mind without their consent. So it was the idea of how do you manipulate the masses to, I don't know, eat eggs and bacon for breakfast, or vote for a particular president, or wear a particular style of clothing during a particular season. All of these things were like PR campaigns. Edward Bernays is the father of that, how to manipulate the mass mind ideology. He wrote this little book called Propaganda. It's got this orangish yellow cover. It's about 70 pages. And basically one of the famous quotes from it is something to the tune of like, the entire American public doesn't know that it's ran by a small elite group of intelligent people. And this isn't like some secret society shit. This is just like public PR campaigns that run underneath the context of why do you buy like this type of hot cocoa versus that type? Why do you buy Pepsi versus Coke? Why do you think of, why are baggy pants in right now and skinny pants aren't? And that was different 20 years ago. Like whatever. So there's an art form to all of that. And he goes in the book, he breaks down like how he was able to get certain presidents elected, start certain fashion trends. He even had like a dictator overthrown in like a Central American government. He worked with like the CIA, worked with the FBI. He was a private advisor to a lot of like wealthy financiers. And so, but basically the whole thing there was that's kind of the origins of manipulating attention. Now, I personally am not for this idea of intentionally manipulating the mass mind or psyche or zeitgeist. But if one is unaware that those motifs are in motion in our reality, then you become part of the docile class whom is influenced in a particular direction. And so I think one of the signature components to what is currently considered like a Bitcoiner is just this idea of high level of willpower, strong self-awareness, and when you have lifted the hood and pulled back the veil on how fiat is untethered to value, you've really kind of ensconced yourself in a shield of impenetrability. Like you can't be fucked with, because all of a sudden you understand what is value and what is money and how to keep it. And that gives you a certain thickness of skin, which makes you less manipulatable, less likely to buy a certain type of jeans versus another from a certain advertisement, less likely to vote for a particular candidate over another, for some, like, hey, like, go to Krispy Kreme. We'll give you free Krispy Kremes if you get a vaccine. Go get the vaccine for a free Krispy Kreme. Like, I don't have any opinions about all that shit. Like, I'm not a medical guy. I'm just saying, like, that's a joke. Like, go to McDonald's and we'll give you a medical treatment. Like, what? Makes no sense. Obviously something is afoot. That's the type of ad campaign. Like, Krispy Kreme for a vax is the type of ad campaign that someone like Edward Bernays would come up with. Like, that's how you manipulate public attention. Like, here's a carrot. Now do this, or vote for that, or check this box. And I just think Bitcoiners are naturally have bullshit detectors. We're just like, I'm good. I can buy a Krispy Kreme. I think they're like $1.29.
And I was with the World coin, I was super shocked how easily people just go ahead and do that. I mean, they didn't even get real value. They just got a coin that they previously made up. Like, they didn't even get a Krispy Kreme.
No, they didn't even get a Krispy Kreme. Fucking Sam Altman, man. What a fucking overlord. Here, scan your eyeballs and we'll give you like 10 fake fiat centralized digital dollars or something. And the whole world's just like, yes, please scan me. Palm print, DNA sample, mail us a piece of your hair and tell us your mother's maiden name and your social security number. And we'll give you 20 digital dollars on your cell phone. Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, you point that out with WorldCoin, like, fucking evil henchmen overlords trying to extract the data set, the entire substrata of the earth. It's so fucking insensitive and uncool. And us Bitcoiners are aware of that. I think that if we keep a sovereign mindset in our spirits and bodies, be aware that this is a playground for economic warfare, which borders on spiritual warfare, and quite obviously and literally geopolitical warfare. Keeping our wits about us and keeping our sats cold, our eyes straight, and looking out for like-minded folks. I'll always rather send Bitcoin to someone on value for value than send them fiat. The cover designer of my book, I paid in Bitcoin. I'm always happy to part with sats. I had a man like Quex did like a really dope hype track for my book. It's called Pay Attention. You can find it on YouTube. Man like Quex, Pay Attention. Anyway, I paid him in Bitcoin. I was like, dude, you're a dope rapper. Like, make a song about this book. You know what I mean? So like that value for value movement. I mean, Noster's dope. I'm always zapping people. I'm on there. If you want to find me, it's at Joseph Voelbel. And I'm on X. I still use it all the time. It's my main Bitcoin platform. It's at Joseph Voelbel. Maybe Robin, you can like drop a link to that or something. And then if you want to find the book, you can get a paperback copy shipped to you anywhere in the world. Thanks to Jeff Bezos. Just go to Amazon and type "Pay Attention to Bitcoin." And if you do read it, go ahead and throw me a review. That really helps the algo. I'm proud of it. And if you don't get a chance to read the whole thing, just read the first chapter, as it's kind of a synecdoche of the entire book is kind of represented in just chapter 1. And that really encompasses sort of this attention thesis that Robin and I have been unpacking today.
That's amazing. I love that. And as with every guest, the Twitter profile will be on the in the description. So from there, they can check out everything. I think on your Twitter is also the Amazon link, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
But yeah, really cool. I have one question that I ask each and every one of my guests, and the question is, what can we learn from you besides Bitcoin?
Great question. I find that if you keep an awareness of yourself of how often you're laughing and like when humor arises in your world, I've always found that if the more laughing that's happening in my life, the lighter I feel and the more spiritually right I feel with the world. So that would be one thing I would just encourage. If you have friends that make you laugh or family that makes you laugh or things you do that you find to be funny, just keep looking for the funny in it. If it's funny, it's money.
You will love that. We have an end routine in the podcast where a previous guest asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest actually is. And he definitely did not know what you will say to the previous question. He asked you the question, what's the best Bitcoin joke you have heard so far?
Well,
I love how this fit together.
Yeah. I mean, I just thinking of like, I don't know if I've heard a Bitcoin joke. I've written a few. I don't want to disparage anyone, but Vitalik Buterin kind of looks like he's asking for change outside of a 7-Eleven. I love the guy. He's brilliant, but just come on. Either he's running the new worldwide computer or he's like, hey man, you got 75 cents. That's not a great joke. I don't like knocking people, but cold, just like this idea of just like cold wallets, like Bitcoiners are just like, man, it's cold in here. And sub-zero temperatures and just like keeping your sats on ice. But yeah, that's what I got for that. Oh yeah. One other one is, no, I'll let that one go. We'll leave it at that. Tell the homie thanks for that.
I'll keep it in mind. Yeah, thank you so much. I usually ask where people can find you, but you already answered that. I will also put it on X, your handle in the description. So yeah, thank you so much, Joseph, for being on, and also thank you so much for everyone that is watching and listening for joining us today. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Bye bye. This content is for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute financial advice.